Hello and welcome to the 9th tutorial that looks at the spreadsheet section of the GCSE ICT Unit 2 controlled test. Now what we're going to be looking at in this video is an if statement or an if function, and we're also going to be looking at relative referencing, which we did touch upon in a previous video, but we're going to be looking at in more detail through an example. So first of all, if we have a look at our goal bonus, which is the column that we're going to be completing in this tutorial, you can see that it says either yes or no. So yes, they get a goal bonus, or no, they don't get a goal bonus. Now we could go through the column, and what I know is that if the player scores 7 or more goals, they get a bonus. As you can see, Will Jones has scored more than 7 or more, so he gets a goal bonus. Same for Richard Jones, and the same for up here Clive Roberts. Now I could go through and I could simply just say yes, they get a bonus. If we go to hours here, I'll look for any value greater than 10 or greater than 7 or equal to 7 and say yes. So that would be yes, and that would be yes. And then I would just have to say that the rest of them were no. That's fine, but imagine that I did have a lot more entries than that. Say I had 100. So if I had 100, that would take me quite a while to actually go through and type out yes or no. And it's likely as well that I may get some typing errors in there as well, because it's quite repetitive. So we're going to be using something called the if statement. So what you can see here is that the outcome is either yes or no. And what it does, you link this cell through a formula. If you see at the top here, it's an if. And just to describe how this statement works, it's saying if the value in E13, which is where the number of goals for Will Jones is kept, is greater than or equal to 7, then say yes. Or else say no. So if it's greater than or equal to 7, it's going to say yes. If it's less than 7, it's going to say no. So let's just go back to our example. Now, your if statement doesn't necessarily have to say yes or no. It could say true or false, or it could say bonus or no bonus. It's entirely up to you. So the formula works the same way, but you can actually change what the outcome or how the outcome is displayed in this column. So let's have a go at doing that first of all. Now obviously if I'm going to set up a formula or function, I need to have an equals, and we're going to be doing the if statement. So as you can see, I can either type it in and open the brackets ready because it's a function, or I can click here and use the tab key and it sets the formula ready. So if you have a look when you're setting up formulas, it tells you the way that you should lay it out. So as you can see in here, the if statement is a true or false scenario, but you can change the word true and false for something else depending on what you need it for. So let's say first of all then if. Now the logical test is going to be greater than or equal to 7. But we need to have a cell reference first. So we're going to be judging it on the number of goals they've scored. So it's going to be E8. So I click on E8. And now what this function is going to do is decide whether this meets the criteria to be a yes or a no answer. So if E8 is greater than or equal to 7, put a comma in, and the way that I think of this is greater than or equal to 7, then that's the comma, say, that's where you put in your quotation marks, yes. So that's the value if true, so say yes. But if it's false, if it's less than 7, we need it to say no. So if E8 is greater than or equal to 7, then say yes. We need to close the quotations because we've opened them. Or else, that's your comma, say no. And obviously, because I've opened up the brackets, I need to close them as well. And now it's said yes. So if we want to look at another example, say if I go back into there and I want it to say bonus, I just change the word yes, because you can put anything inside those quotation marks. Excel knows that as soon as you've opened the quotation marks, you can type in whatever you want. So I could put bonus. If not, say no bonus. And it works exactly the same way. So because he scored over 10, it says bonus. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use relative referencing, which we talked about before, which is where I can use the fill handle to actually drag a formula over a series of cells, usually the ones directly beneath it, or you could do it horizontally, but in this case it's going to be vertically. So I've dragged it down now, and as you can see, if we check it, we say, yeah, it says bonus there because they've scored 7 or more, bonus there because they've scored 10, and 7 or more, so they get a bonus as well. So that's worked really, really well. Now, just to go through the relative referencing, if I just delete those again, remember that with a relative reference, it drags the formula down to here, but it will change this cell reference here, and it will do it to E9 and E10 and E11 and so on. So if I click and drag it down, if I click on the cells there, you can see up in the formula bar, that's E8, that's E9, so it keeps exactly the same formula, but just changes the cell reference, and that's relative referencing, because it's relative to this cell and this cell, but it just changes the actual cell reference. So if we look at the mark scheme, what we've done there is we've used an if statement, or an if function, which is an advanced mark, and we've also used there relative referencing, which will get us another mark out of the basic skills. So there's 2 marks there, which are very, very simple to do. Now the if statement is really, really good. And I know when we looked at the example that we said, well actually, yeah, we could just go down and we could type in the words bonus and no bonus. It's a bit more time consuming, but we could do that. But here's where functions and formulas, just to reiterate it again, are so useful. If, say for example, it turned out that I typed that in incorrectly, and they hadn't scored 7, they scored 6. What I would have to do is change that to 6, and then I'd also have to say no bonus in there. I'd have to type that out myself. But because the formulas are linked in, if I do change that to 6 and I press enter, then this cell, the value changes automatically. So it's really, really good. So if I change it back to 7 because it was right, it says bonus. And this is why your formulas are so important, because it not only saves you time, but it also makes your spreadsheet model a lot more accurate.